Hey guys, welcome to Game Back. Today bringing another video for our Warzone weapons. Today we're going to cover the KRIG 6 or the AK-5 again. So this is, I know, shocking. I'm using the KRIG 6 and I'm actually also running a MAC 10. I don't know what I've become, but this was kind of an experiment which is going to lead into another video that's going to be upcoming here on the channel. Most likely early next week. So I took a day to run these meta weapons currently just to see the difference between these and the modern warfare weapons that I typically use. So you'll see this is a really good duo win that I'm going to run you guys through that I had with Dill. I think I had 12, he had 13, so really solid duo win and buybacks. And we'll just run through the gameplay, and I'll also talk through just kind of the aspects of the KRIG and the MAC 10. So first off, my build here, nothing really special, just a standard meta build. So here we'll start with the base KRIG or the AK-5. We'll go ahead and do the agency suppressor. So that'll give us the sound suppression, vertical recoil control, bullet velocity, and the effective damage range. So two things here is the effective damage range, but mainly the vertical recoil control is the big one here. That's what you don't get with the monolithic suppressors for the modern warfare weapons. So vertical recoil control is increased with this attachment, which is kind of crazy, and we'll see that when we get into the gameplay. Next up, the 15-inch mil-spec barrel. Going to increase our bullet velocity on top of the suppressor stack. Also going to increase or mitigate the horizontal recoil control and the vertical recoil control and increase the effective damage range. So you can see the pros here are stacking up really, really nicely for these Cold War weapons. Cons, not a big deal. Hipfire accuracy, aim down sight speed, you don't even notice it. Sprint moving speed, don't even notice it. Aim walking movement speed, none of these, all these are really negligible for the weapon. They don't impact the weapon, in my opinion, really at all. So we'll go ahead and select that. You'll just see how this weapon handles. Laser will skip. Optic, we're going to run the axle arms 3 times. So we'll go ahead, it's the standard one for this meta build. Skip out on the stock and the grip. Ammo, we're going to run that 60 round fast mag. So we'll increase the ammo from the 30 of the 5.56 x 45 up to the 60 round. And again, you can see the con is the aim down sight speed, but again, you don't notice it at all. You can basically, the movement speed and everything on this is still very, very good, which you'll see in the gameplay. And then the underbarrel attachment, we're going to run that field agent grip. So this, again, is going to stack and increase or mitigate our horizontal and vertical recoil control yet again. So we have that, and again, the cons here, you don't even notice it. So we have horizontal vertical recoil control with the underbarrel, you have it with the barrel, and you have it with the muzzle device. So you're getting more stacks here on the Cold War weapons for recoil mitigation than you are on the modern warfare weapons. So camouflage, I'm going to just run something to make it look nice and pretty. So I'll run the platoon, nice little woodland camo there. And then for the MAC 10, I don't even know what the meta build is for this. I just kind of going off of what I have. So I'm going to run the base suppressor here. Again, you're still getting bullet velocity increase. The only thing you're not getting with this is the recoil control, which again, in close quarters, you don't really need it. I'm running the 6.1-inch reinforced heavy, which I actually think was probably the wrong one. Maybe in the gameplay I was probably running the 5.3-inch Ranger. I might have tweaked this. Maybe I didn't have it unlocked. Maybe I really was running the reinforced heavy. You want to run the 5.3-inch. It's going to be the right one that you're going to want to run with that. But this is the one I picked, is the reinforced heavy. So that's probably what you're going to see in the gameplay. I don't really recall. 5 milliwatt laser. Again, this is just going to help with the hip fire accuracy. And then the 50 round drum mag here. Again, this is just what I had for the weapon. And then we'll run the striker grip for movement speed and the hip fire accuracy again. So MAC 10 just still extremely overpowered, probably one of the better, if not the best SMG still in the game. So those are the weapons I'm running here. So let's go ahead now. I'll run you through this duo window. We're just going to talk a little bit about the aspects of this weapon, and then leading into, this is going to kind of be like an introduction video to an upcoming video that I'm going to be doing for the modern warfare weapons and the Cold War weapon comparisons yet again. So we'll break that down. We'll lead into that here. So let's go ahead and we'll jump into the gameplay with the AK-5, the KRIG 6, and the MAC 10. Just landed over by Airport Tower doing a scav that we got picked up here. So you just see some gameplay going on here. And I'm just going to talk, I'll jump into more walking you through this as the video progresses. I'll highlight some things. But definitely you'll see here, one thing with the Cold War integration is the Cold War ground loot, right? So this is obviously going to be changing when Vanguard's introduced. We're going to see a lot of the World War II ground loot. But here you can see obviously the OTS-2 there, or the OTS-9, I believe, I'm sorry. And the AKs, a lot of the Cold War weapons just on the ground are very, very strong compared to what the modern warfare weapons used to be. And here you'll see, first off, Dill just doming both these guys and saving my life there, which is one of 2 times he saved my life in this game. But it's funny that Deathcom's on this team and another team basically accused Dill of hacking, which are funny. But here you'll see in the gameplay, the main thing we want to pay attention to is the AK-5 with the KRIG 6. Basically the recoil, right? So the weapon does have very little vertical recoil at all, very little horizontal recoil. The weapon goes up slightly, the barrel climbs just a little bit. You have so many recoil mitigating attachments on there that we cover, but you'll see obviously when I'm firing this thing, it's obviously straight vertical recoil, so it's extremely easy to control, and there's no horizontal bounce whatsoever. And especially if you compare this to something like the M13 or even the Kilo, probably the best comparisons here, those two modern warfare weapons. The M13, at least it has a fast rate of fire, so you still need to be able to control that a little bit. Obviously, it's a very low recoil weapon. Even the Kilo still has more bounce to it. And the main thing I'm noticing here with the Cold War weapons is not only is the vertical recoil control the only recoil the vertical recoil is the only recoil the weapons have. There's really little to no deviation horizontally with the weapon. You have all these recoil mitigating attachments. So you can see the main thing though is, although it may have slight vertical recoil on the weapon, the scope does not move with the weapon when it recoils. Right here, really quick, Dill saving my life. I zip up and he headshots that guy right before I get killed, which is just crazy. And that's another, it was a little kid or a girl, so we felt bad, but he accused Dill of hacking right there. And I think we killed that guy a few times too. But you'll see, just pay attention with the gameplay. The Krig, the main thing here is, yes, the muzzle's climbing, but the scope itself, there's no movement at all with the scope. So it's easy to stay on target when I'm firing in full auto. Because there's no recoil on the weapon itself, the scope itself doesn't bounce, so there's no bounce at all when you're aiming down sight. So there's no automatic fire penalty. Even with something like the Kilo, there's still a pretty decent amount of vertical climb. Even though the weapon itself is very, very accurate, the scope itself is going to be bouncing more so than we see on the Cold War weapons. The Cold War weapons, whenever you're firing in full auto with this Krig, you can just adjust very quickly and stay on target, or correct and get on target, right? There's no penalty, like I said, for automatic fire because the scope doesn't move at all with the weapon's recoil. So the scope is basically, it's almost as if you have a free-floating scope that's independent of the weapon itself, and it just allows you to beam players at very long ranges deadly accurate. There's no penalty at all for missing shots because you can easily correct course. With something like the Kilo, and these other modern warfare weapons, the scope itself is recoiling with the weapon, or at least it's mimicking that with the visual recoil itself. So it makes it a little bit harder to stay on target on moving targets and things like that at long ranges, whereas here with the Cold War weapons, obviously it's very easy and you can adjust course. You see it with a lot of these engagements at these medium to longer ranges with the Krig. It's just very, very easy for me to correct course and get shots on target. And again, you're not missing shots doesn't hurt you at all because you can just quickly correct course. So the Krig 6 definitely still, this thing's been nerfed I believe 3 or 4 times already by Raven, and it still just doesn't have any recoil. It's insane, this weapon. It's a little bit crazy to me that they've nerfed this how many times now. Like I said, I believe it's been at least 4, and it still just doesn't have recoil. You can see the scope is not moving. It's almost as if it's moving so slightly, but the crosshairs aren't moving with it at all. So the scope itself is barely bouncing if you're paying attention, and the crosshairs of the reticle is not moving at all. So again, just making it super easy to stay on target, get on target, and no automatic fire penalty, whereas something like an M13 or a Kilo, granted those are very accurate weapons, but you still have to account for the visual recoil and be able to control your recoil somewhat. The Cold War weapons, really when I picked this up, and the MAC-10, it was just so easy. And again, this is with buyback duos. I didn't even need to think. I had really good games with these weapons when I used them for the day. Pretty decently high kills, all like 7, 8, 9, 10 kill games, and here we ended up dropping it. I dropped 12, drops 13. But again, really in gunfights, I didn't really need to think, and I'm so confident I can push anybody, I can take gunfights knowing that I'm going to win because my weapon doesn't have recoil. So I'm so used to using like the Scars, the M13s, these heavier recoil weapons, especially for modern warfare, like the Odin, that when you pick up something like this, it's just so easy. And if you compare that to something like the Grau used to be or the Bruin used to be, we used to complain that those weapons didn't have recoil, but compared to what this weapon is kind of insane. I mean, granted, those weapons were still very, very broken when they released the Grau, the Bruin, things like that. It took way too long to patch, but this is something not just with the AK-5 or the Krig 6. It seems to be almost all Cold War weapons, but again, you can see a really good game there, really easy gunfights. I never felt like I was in trouble. I could take on any gunfight, and I was confident I was going to win basically every gunfight also. So let me know what you guys think of the Krig 6. Is this thing going to get nerfed again? Hopefully they do a big overhaul with these Cold War weapons. And again, this is going to lead into another video comparing Modern Warfare and Cold War weapons yet again. Let me know what you guys think down below. Till next time, Buffin Gaming, out.